Welcome to Truly Bizarre, a podcast dedicated to uncovering the truth behind some of the world's most intriguing, mysterious, and bizarre events. I'm your host, Ava, and today we're diving into 3 strange and unsettling cases. With each case in this episode getting more and more bizarre, be sure to listen to the end. Let's get to it. Ice, radiation, and physical trauma. This story starts in the winter of 1959, when a group of 9 experienced Russian hikers set out on an expedition to the Ural Mountains. They were led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student and experienced hiker. The plan was to hike to the peak of the mountain known as Otorten, which means "don't go there" in the local Mansi language. However, the hikers never returned from their expedition. After several weeks of no contact, a search and rescue team was sent to look for the missing hikers. What they found was a scene of horror and mystery. The first of the hikers' bodies were found on the slope of the mountain with no signs of external injury. But as the search continued, it became clear that something truly inexplicable had occurred. The hikers' tent had been sliced open from the inside as if they had been trying to escape from something. The hikers' clothes were also found to be radioactive. As the investigation continued, more bizarre details emerged. Some of the hikers' bodies were found to have fractured skulls, broken ribs, and missing eyes. One of the hikers, a woman named Lyudmila Dubanina, had her tongue missing. Other hikers were found to have high levels of radiation in their bodies. The initial investigation concluded that the hikers had died from hypothermia and an avalanche, but the strange and gruesome circumstances of their deaths led to many conspiracy theories and alternative explanations. Some believed that the hikers had been attacked by a yeti or other mysterious creature, while others thought that they had been the victims of a military experiment gone wrong. For decades, the case remained unsolved, with no definitive explanation for the hikers' deaths. But in recent years, new evidence and research have shed light on the incident. In 2020, a study published in the journal Communications, Earth, and Environment suggested that the hikers may have been killed by an unusual type of avalanche known as a slab avalanche. This type of avalanche occurs when a layer of snow breaks loose and slides down the mountain, and it can be triggered by a small disturbance, like a group of hikers. Further research also pointed out that the hikers were not properly equipped for the harsh weather conditions, and their clothing and equipment were not adequate to protect them from the extreme cold. The hikers also made a series of mistakes that led to their deaths, such as leaving the safety of their tent in the middle of the night and not properly planning their route. However, some experts are still skeptical of this explanation, pointing out that the injuries found on some of the hikers' bodies were not consistent with those caused by an avalanche. They also question why the hikers would have cut open their own tent and fled in such a panicked manner if they were only facing an avalanche. Other theories have also been proposed, such as the possibility of a military training accident or a natural event, such as a methane explosion. But the lack of concrete evidence and the fact that the hikers were in an isolated area with no witnesses make it difficult to determine the true cause of their deaths. Despite the recent findings and research, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most mysterious and unsolved cases in history. It raises important questions about the limits of human understanding and the potential dangers of venturing into the unknown. It also highlights the importance of proper planning, equipment, and safety measures when embarking on outdoor adventures. We can also look at the cultural and political context of the time. The Dyatlov Pass incident occurred during the Cold War, and the Soviet Union was known to have a secretive and authoritarian government. Some have speculated that the government may have covered up the true cause of the hikers' deaths to avoid negative publicity. The family members of the hikers who lost their lives tell us about the pain and sorrow of losing their loved ones and how this incident has affected them. They also speak about their search for the truth and their desire for closure. Experts, including researchers, historians, and outdoor enthusiasts, about their thoughts on the incident and their own theories about what may have happened. Some experts believe that the answer to the mystery may never be fully known and that the incident has become a part of history and folklore. The Dyatlov Pass incident is a reminder of the fragility of human life and the power of nature. It's a story that has been passed down through generations and has become a legend in its own right. It also highlights the importance of proper planning, equipment, and safety measures when embarking on outdoor adventures. The Dyatlov Pass incident is a real event that happened in 1959. The theories and explanations mentioned in this podcast are unverified and have been debated by experts. The recent study published in Communications, Earth, and Environment is considered one of the most likely explanations of the incident, but the mystery remains unsolved. The severed feet. In this second story, we're diving into the strange and unsettling case of the severed feet that washed on shore in British Columbia. It all began in 2007, when residents of British Columbia, Canada, started finding human feet washing up on the shores of the Salish Sea. The first one was found on Jedediah Island, and it was still wearing a running shoe. The local authorities were immediately alerted and an investigation was launched, but this was just the beginning. Over the next few years, more and more feet were found on the shores of the Salish Sea. Some are still wearing sneakers, while others are not. The authorities were at a loss, and so were the local residents. Rumors and theories started to circulate. Some said it was the work of a serial killer, others thought it was a cult ritual. The speculation was endless. People were afraid to go to the beach, and the local economy was affected by the fear. Businesses that relied on tourism were hit the hardest. But as the years went by and more feet were found, the authorities started to piece together the truth. They found out that the majority of the feet that washed up on shore belonged to individuals who had died by suicide or accidents. The feet had been separated from the rest of the body due to the natural decomposition process. The BC Coroner's Service also stated that there was no evidence of foul play in any of the cases. But that didn't stop the speculation. Some people believed that there was something more sinister behind all of this. But the case wasn't closed yet. Some experts had different explanations. Dr. Gail Anderson, a forensic entomologist at Simon Fraser University, suggested that the sneakers the feet were found in may have helped preserve the appendages and allowed them to float for longer periods of time. The buoyancy of the sneakers would have kept the feet from sinking and allowed them to be carried by ocean currents until they washed up on shore. Dr. Anderson also stated that the ocean currents in the Salish Sea are particularly strong, which could account for the high number of feet washing up on shore. Another theory was proposed by Dr. Alex Berzau, a microbiologist and science editor at the American Council on Science and Health. He suggested that the severed feet may have been cut off by sharks. Berzau explained that if a body is submerged in the ocean for long enough, the flesh will decompose, leaving behind just the bones. However, the bones will still be heavy and sink to the bottom of the ocean. But if a shark were to bite off a foot, the sneaker would provide enough buoyancy for the foot to float to the surface. This theory was met with skepticism by many experts, as the chances of a shark biting off a foot and leaving the sneaker intact are slim. But despite these theories, the BC Coroner's Service maintained that the majority of the feet belonged to individuals who died by suicide or accident, and that there is no evidence of foul play in any of the cases. They also pointed out that the ocean currents in the Salish Sea are particularly strong, which could account for the high number of feet washing up on shore. But even with these explanations, the question remained, why were so many feet washing up on shore in British Columbia? The authorities turned to science for answers. They studied ocean currents, tides, and weather patterns to try to understand how the feet were ending up on the beaches. They also collected data on the number of missing persons in the area and cross-referenced it with the feet that were found. And finally, after years of research and analysis, they had an answer. The high number of severed feet washing up on shore in British Columbia was due to a combination of factors. The strong ocean currents in the Salish Sea, coupled with the fact that many of the individuals who had died by suicide or accident were wearing sneakers, contributed to the phenomenon. The sneakers provided buoyancy and helped preserve the feet, allowing them to float on the surface of the water for longer periods of time. With this new understanding, the authorities were able to put the speculation and rumors to rest. They were able to provide closure to the families of the missing individuals whose feet had washed up on shore. And they were able to reassure the local residents that there was no foul play involved. But even though the case has been solved, it serves as a reminder of the unpredictable and mysterious nature of the ocean. It also serves as a reminder that sometimes even the most bizarre and unsettling cases can have a logical explanation. The jealous girlfriend. In June 2016, an Orange County woman was arrested and accused of orchestrating a twisted rape fantasy-style plot against her husband's ex-girlfriend. What happened next was one of the most bizarre cases in recent memory that left many people shocked and mystified. This is the story of the Angela Diaz case. The story began when Ian Diaz, a former Marine, met Michelle Hadley in 2012 while attending graduate school at Arizona State University. They dated briefly before breaking things off amicably. But even after they stopped seeing each other, they remained good friends and kept in touch. Meanwhile, Ian had moved to Southern California where he met his future wife, Angela Connell Diaz. After marrying in October 2015, she quickly became obsessed with Ian's ex-girlfriend, Michelle, even going so far as to research her on social media and send her threatening emails using a false identity. In June 2016, Angela took her scheme to a whole new level when she created fake Craigslist ads offering free rent for women seeking roommates. When Michelle responded to one of these ads and agreed to meet with the landlord, Angela called the police and reported that Michelle had made violent threats against her during their meeting, leading to Michelle's arrest on suspicion of attempted forcible rape, stalking, and making criminal threats. Despite the evidence against her being extremely thin, police took Michelle into custody where she spent 5 days in jail until prosecutors concluded that there wasn't enough evidence to support criminal charges against her. It was only then did police begin to suspect that this entire ordeal had been set up by someone else, someone who wanted to frame Michelle for a crime she didn't commit. After conducting an extensive investigation into the case and interviewing multiple witnesses, investigators determined that it was indeed Angela Connell Diaz who had masterminded this elaborate scheme. Aided by U.S. Marshal Tony Rada, who had helped create a fake identity for Angela so she could carry out her plan without being detected by authorities. Both were subsequently charged with conspiracy and aggravated assault, which led to them both being sentenced to prison time for their roles in the case, with Rada receiving 2 years while Connor received 4 years plus 3 years probation upon their release from prison. The Angela Diaz case is now remembered as one of the most bizarre true crime stories of recent times, one that left many people completely bewildered as to how anyone could conceive such an elaborate plan just to frame their husband's ex-girlfriend for a crime she didn't commit. Thankfully, though, justice has been served in this case, and both Angela Connell Diaz and Tony Rada are now spending time behind bars for their part in this twisted tale. That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening to Truly Bizarre. Subscribe to our podcast and join us next time as we dive into more bizarre cases and stories.